to the channel. My name is Brian Kingsbury. Today we're going to do another Brian Reads the News segment. This one is coming to us from MSN.com. It's titled 12 Childhood Chores Americans Did That Kids Today Would Refuse. Chore number 1 is hanging laundry on a clothesline. Before automatic dryers became the norm, hanging clothes outside was a daily task. Kids had to carry heavy, wet laundry outside and carefully pin each piece onto the line, according to Michelle Houts. If it was windy, you'd have to chase down stray socks that blew away. On rainy days, laundry would have to dry outside, stretch across furniture or a flimsy rack. Taking laundry down wasn't much easier, especially when sheets got stiff from the cold. If a sudden storm hit, kids had to rush outside and grab everything before it got soaked. Clothespins were easy to lose, and redoing a fallen load was frustrating. Today, kids wouldn't believe how much effort went into something a dryer does in minutes. Chore number 2 is scrubbing floors on your hands and knees. Mops existed, but plenty of parents still believed a deep cleaning floors by hand, according to Ask a House Cleaner. Kids were handed a bucket of soapy water and a rag and told to scrub every inch. This meant crawling across the floor, making sure no dirt or grime was left behind. If you missed a spot, you'd be sent back to do it again. It was tiring and knees would ache from all the pressure. Some parents even had kids dry the floor with a towel afterward to prevent streaks. The process was slow and backbreaking, but there was no way around it. With Swiffers and robot vacuums, modern kids would never put up with this kind of work. Chore number 3 is washing dishes by hand every night. Before dishwashers were common, washing dishes by hand was a must after every meal. Kids had to scrape off food, scrub everything with a sponge, and rinse each piece until it was spotless. If there was stuck-on bits, you had to soak and scrub harder. No skipping the tough ones. After washing, dishes had to be dried and put away before a job was considered done. It was a long and messy chore, especially after big family meals. If someone let food dry on the plates, it made scrubbing even worse. There was no sneaking away from the task. Parents made sure it got done. Kids today would rather let dishes pile up than spend time at the sink. Chore number 4 is collecting and taking out the ashes from a wood stove. Before central heating, many homes relied on wood stoves for warmth in the winter. That meant someone had to scoop out the ashes, carry them outside, and dispose of them safely. It was a filthy job, leaving hands, clothes, and sometimes even faces covered in soot. The ashes were fine and dusty, so one wrong move sent them flying everywhere. If it was windy, you could end up wearing a layer of ash yourself. Some parents made kids wait until the embers were cold, but others weren't so cautious. Either way, it was a task that had to be done often to keep the stove running efficiently. Today, with thermostats and electric heaters, most kids wouldn't even know where to begin. The 5th chore is ironing school clothes. Before wrinkle-resistant fabrics and steam dryers, ironing was a regular part of getting dressed. Kids had to carefully heat up the iron and smooth out their school uniforms or Sunday best. It took patience and focus to avoid scorching the fabric or burning yourself. A single mistake could leave a shiny mark or even a hole in the clothing. Ironing wasn't just for special occasions, it was expected for everyday wear. If you were running late, it didn't matter, you still had to press out every wrinkle. Some families even had kids iron bed sheets and pillowcases for that crisp, neat look. Today, most kids just toss clothes in the dryer for a few minutes and wear them wrinkled. Chore number 6 is mowing the lawn with a push mower. Before gas and electric mowers, kids had to use heavy manual push mowers. These old-fashioned machines had no motor, just a spinning blade that required serious effort to push. If the grass was too long, mowing felt like pushing a boulder uphill. Sticks and rocks could jam the blades, forcing kids to stop and clear them out by hand. The summer heat made this chore even worse, leaving kids sweaty and exhausted. If you missed a spot, you had to go back over it or you'd hear about it later. The mower had to be properly stored, cleaned, and sometimes even sharpened. Kids today would take one look at a push mower and run the other way. Chore number 7 is weeding the garden by hand. A well-kept yard meant spending hours pulling weeds one by one. Kids had to squat in the dirt, dig out roots, and make sure they didn't break off the tops. If you didn't get the whole root, the weed would grow back even stronger. Some weeds had thorns and others were stubborn, making the task painful and frustrating. Skipping a week meant the yard or garden would be overrun. Parents would inspect the work, making sure nothing was left behind. There were no shortcuts, just dirt-covered hands and aching backs. With weed killers and landscaping services today, kids don't have to deal with this back-breaking chore. Chore number 8 is bringing in firewood for the stove. If a family heated their home with a wood stove, someone had to bring in fresh logs. Kids were often sent outside, even in the cold, to carry in heavy armfuls of firewood. The logs were rough, leading to splinters, scrapes, and dirt-covered clothes. If you drop a log, you had to pick it up fast before it got wet or muddy. This wasn't a once-a-week job. It had to be done daily to keep the fire going. Some parents made kids stack the wood neatly, adding even more work to the chore. It was exhausting, but there was no skipping it when the house depended on that fire. Today, with electric and gas heating, most kids wouldn't even think about firewood. Chore number 9 is cleaning the gutters. Before gutter guards, cleaning out the gutter was a regular chore. Leaves, twigs, and dirt would pile up, clogging the system and causing water damage. Kids were often sent up on ladders with a bucket and gloves to scoop out the mess by hand. It was a dirty, sometimes dangerous job, but it had to be done. If you didn't clean the gutters, rainwater would overflow and cause leaks. Bugs and even small animals sometimes nested in the debris, making for an unpleasant surprise. Parents expected kids to do this job carefully with no excuses. Today, most parents wouldn't dream of letting kids anywhere near a ladder. Chore number 10 is changing TV channels manually. Before remote controls, changing the channel meant physically turning a dial on the TV. Kids often got stuck as the family's designated channel changer, running back and forth between shows. If you wanted to adjust the volume, that meant another trip to the set. Some TVs had dials that were stiff and hard to turn, making the job even worse. It was especially annoying during commercial breaks when flipping channels had to be fast. If the dial broke, kids had to use pliers to twist the knob. Parents often made kids stand by the TV to switch channels on command. With streaming and voice controls, kids today wouldn't last 5 minutes with an old school TV. Chore number 11 is rolling coins for the bank. Before digital banking and coin counting machines, saving change meant rolling coins by hand. Kids were given stacks of pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters and had to sort them into paper sleeves. Each roll had to be filled to the exact amount, and if one coin was off, you had to start over. It was tedious, time-consuming work that required patience and attention to detail. Trips to the bank often depended on how quickly the coins were rolled. If you were too slow, your parents would remind you that unrolled coins weren't worth much at the bank. Sometimes fingers got sore from pushing coins into the tight paper tubes. Today, kids barely can handle cash at all, let alone spend time rolling up spare change. And finally, chore number 12 is defrosting the freezer. Before modern frost-free refrigerators, freezers would build up layers of ice that had to be chipped away. Kids were given a scraper and had to carefully break off the thick frost inside. The job took forever, and if you weren't careful, you could damage the freezer lining. Meanwhile, food had to be stored in coolers or eaten quickly before it thawed. The process involved soaking up melting ice with towels and sometimes even using a hair dryer to speed things up. Water puddled everywhere and the whole thing was wet, cold, and miserable. Parents expected kids to do it without complaint or they'd be stuck dealing with an overfilled, inefficient freezer. Today's kids would be horrified at the idea of spending an afternoon just to keep the freezer working properly. Alright, there you have it. 12 childhood chores Americans did that kids today would refuse. What do you guys think? Do you think you remember doing any of these chores as children? Put it in the comment section if your folks made you do some of that stuff. I'd be interested to hear which one you were in charge of. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please take a second to hit that like button. Hit that button now. And if you really enjoy this sort of content, consider subscribing to the channel.